So it seems like the problem we thought with the Jets that will come to fruition this season has already begun in a joint practice with the Carolina Panthers earlier this week, when I sense frustration from everybody on the O-line, Aaron Rodgers, and the coaches. You can't go 3 and out in a 2-minute drive like that. I think there was more disappointment from the whole team. So we thought the O-line would be an issue, and even in a joint practice against the Carolina Panthers, it seemingly is already an issue. So I want to know, could this be a sign of things to come for Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets?
Well, Dwayne Brown has not played yet, right? He's probably one of their better linemen. He had a shoulder injury last year and is still recovering from that. So he hasn't gotten in there yet. I think once he's a veteran, once he gets in there, that will help their line. And also, Mekhi Becton, he's not really played much at all yet either, and they're bringing him back slow because he's had those knee injuries. So those two guys could make a big difference on the offensive line. The two guys that they're rotating around there, Mitchell and another guy, I can't remember his
was it Billy Turner?
Yeah, they've been inconsistent, and they're waiting for one of them to play well at one of those positions that they're moving them back and forth from left and right tackle. So I think that it's a fluid situation, and they're trying to figure out what's best, and they don't have all of their resources out there on the field on the offensive line. So I think it's a work in progress, and it's a little early to judge. I can understand why they're frustrated because they all think they're going to the Super Bowl this year. So I guess they feel like they need to go right up and down the field on every drive. But in there against the Panthers, it did look pretty bad. There would have been 3 sacks if Rodgers wasn't wearing the red shirt. And there were 5 and the time he did have time to back in the pocket, there were 5 holding penalties. So I think there were only 13 plays. So and 8 of them they played terrible. So it was not good. It was not pretty. I can understand why they're frustrated.
I mean, truthfully, if you told me, are the Jets going to be screwed because of their offensive line this year? Yeah, I would say that. Now, you brought up a good point. First of all, Mekhi Becton was supposed to be their amazing choice at the tackle position. And if you take a look at their offensive line, the guards are not really the issue. The interior of the offensive line is not the issue. Laken Tomlinson is a perfectly fine guard. Elijah Vera Tucker is probably their best offensive lineman. And then Connor McGovern is not a bad center whatsoever. It's the question of, the tackles on the outside are the issue. Max Mitchell is taking over the right tackle job. That's supposed to be where Mekhi Becton is moving because Dwayne Brown is supposed to be your left tackle. Now, if Mekhi Becton, I talked about this during the preseason, he was supposed to take 20 to 25 snaps, and he took 7. Now, it isn't the fact of, he was injured or the fact that he was on that snap restriction, because 25 snaps was his snap restriction. It was the fact that he took himself out. My guess would be because, at least he said in the interview, in the post-game interview, he took himself out because he didn't feel like the turf was in perfect conditions for people of his size. His quote, not mine. So he wasn't even confident in himself with his legs underneath him with the prior injury that he's 100% healthy to play in not perfect conditions. Now, I think that's a major problem when you have a quarterback that's probably, 40 years old, turning 40 years old. He's now moving towards more of a pocket passer. He's not exactly wanting to roll out and not exactly wanting to rush around. So the main problem A, was your offensive line. And if your offensive line is already showing, danger with a team like the Panthers, imagine what it's going to look like against these teams. You start off the year with the Bills, the Cowboys, the Patriots, and the Chiefs, and the Broncos and the Eagles. The first 6 weeks, the Broncos are probably the outlier here, but the first 6 weeks, if
the Patriots played last night, I don't know. There could be easy bait too.
They didn't have Barmore out there. They didn't have Judon out there. So the interior defensive line is an issue. But let's say the Chiefs have Chris Jones. I think the Broncos, at least passing wise, they have a good defense. I mean, the first 6 weeks, the interior defense each of these teams is very, very good. The Eagles we're going for the sack record last season. The Patriots, they keep getting better and better. They had 30. They were second in takeaways with 30 last season. The Cowboys, we all know the Cowboys' strength is their defense, and the Bills with Von Miller coming back healthy, hopefully, at least soon, they should be great. They should be great this season. So So right now, you play 6 teams, and even the Giants have a pretty good interior defensive line with Dexter Lawrence, with Williams, and even the Chargers have a good D line with Bosa and with Khalil Mack. So they're dealing with a lot of great, even Max Crosby with the Raiders, and then you have Bradley Chubb in Week 12. So you potentially have 12 weeks where you're playing pretty good interior defenses. So can the Jets, with a 40-year-old quarterback, can they figure it out? And Robert Saleh said, I believe today or yesterday, that they're still trying to figure out what's their best 5-man squad in the offensive line. We're about to start, full-speed football here. You don't really have a lot of time to figure out who your best 5 offensive linemen are. So I think Robert Saleh and this Jets team need to figure it out because, once again, a 40-year-old quarterback who's moving more towards pocket passing. There's a lot of issues that could present themselves for the Jets if they don't get this right. Vajrona, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with most of what you said. I already made quite a few comments about it, but I think one thing you touched on here is Robert Saleh saying we haven't quite figured it out yet. Well, he's not an offensive coach.
Right.
He's a defensive guy. So and I do think I mentioned this earlier when we talked about the Jets and whether they're headed to the Super Bowl or not. The coaching is an issue, right? It's solid. They made a bunch of mistakes last year. He had a bunch of issues with managing the clock, some of the plays they called. So this is an example of perhaps him not having the expertise to help put that offensive line together in a way that would make it solid and supportive for a Hall of Fame quarterback like Aaron Rodgers.
I'll also say this. While, yes, I agree with you, the head coach could be an issue come playoff time because I think we can both agree the Jets are probably going to make the playoffs.
You got to make the playoffs first.
I'll say this. Why isn't also the quarterback another issue there? Rodgers in the playoffs the past couple of years has not been good. Hell, he's been pretty bad. He lost to Jimmy G, who people hate. He's a tier 4 quarterback to a lot of rankings. So if you're losing to tier 4 quarterbacks in the playoffs, when you have Devontae Adams, when at the time you had a 1-2 punch combo of A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, when you had a better offensive line than the Jets do right now, and now you're aging another year coming off a bad season, why can't we say that maybe the quarterback's also an issue come playoff time? I think that should be a fair argument to make. Well, yes, I completely agree. The head coach is not an offensive coach. Defensive coaches in this era of football are not the greatest. We saw Belichick took a massive hit without Brady. We're seeing Mike Tomlin. When's Mike Tomlin made the playoffs and been successful? It's been a while. Pete Carroll, when have we seen him have long-term playoff success and a greatly developed offense? The offensive line issue, running game's an issue. Is Geno Smith going to repeat this year what he had last season? We're not entirely sure. We're seeing offensive coaches like Nick Sirianni, like Zach Taylor, like Kyle Shanahan, like Andy Reid. Those are the coaches that have massive success. I think the only outlier here with defensive coaches is Sean McDermott. But that's because they have Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs who are lighting up the NFL right now. At least mainly. They're kind of getting overshadowed by Mahomes and Burrow in the AFC. But we're talking about defensive coaches like that who, don't exactly have the type of success that they do in this modern day NFL. And so Robert Saleh, yeah, we could see an issue there where he's a defensive coach. He's not exactly specialized in offense. And you have a quarterback who in the playoffs the past, decade or so has come up actually really, really small in the playoffs. So I think while coaching is a major issue, that helm of your offense, that quarterback, I think that's another issue right there. But once again, he was just a back-to-back MVP. 4 MVPs going for his 5th. He has arguably better weapons than he had last year with Garrett Wilson and McCole Hardman.
It won't be any good if the offensive line is no good.
That's also true.
That's just as important. That's probably as important as having the good skill players, right?
Yeah, I agree.
There's no hole to run through. You're not going to get very far on the ground. That's for sure.
True. And then you're going to have to leave Aaron Rodgers.
You can't pass if you're pressured on every play.
Right.
They could have sacked him 3 times if he didn't have the red shirt on in the practice against the Panthers. I don't think the Panthers are world beaters on defense, right?
They have a good defense, but not something that should be going through a team like the Jets, who are supposedly, like you said, people are saying they're going to make the Super Bowl and maybe even win it. Because I think, honestly, the AFC is probably going to dominate the Super Bowls for the next couple of years. The NFC is largely inferior. The Eagles went on this massive run, but then came up massively small, at least on defense. Their defense, once again, like I said earlier in the show, was going for the sack record this past season. And they couldn't stop the Chiefs they couldn't stop the Chiefs at all. So, we're going to have to wait and see. But this Jets offensive line being frustrated towards the beginning, and Robert Saleh saying, we don't even know what our best 5 offensive linemen are. I think, honestly, to answer the question, I think that this could be a sign for things to come, especially with a 40-year-old pocket passing now quarterback. But, of course, we have to wait and see. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, if you want to check out the full episode, make sure you click the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to listen to this show anywhere you go, make sure you go to anchor.fm/The Harvey Hour or anywhere you get your podcasts.